So good evening. I want to welcome you officially to the Sideliners Summa celebration for 2019. My name is Chris Schreiner. I'm your Master of Ceremonies this evening and a teacher at Hoover High School. We're obviously celebrating the class of 2019 this year, and ladies and gentlemen, all their fantastic, as you'll hear tonight, accomplishments. Before we begin, we want to take just a few moments to note all the people who have made contributions to make this evening so special. The first group we need to take note of is the Sideliners organization. Without the Sideliners, this entire event wouldn't be possible. So you may or may not know, since 1958, the Sideliners organization has taken their time and their treasury to spend it on our children, on the students of Hoover High School in North Canton City Schools. They've raised thousands of dollars, and they have supported time and time again the arts, the academics, and the athletics. We're going to take a moment and I'm going to ask you to please take note of the entries that are in the memory books that you have in front of you. All of that information was shared by obviously all of our scholars. The biographies and their thoughtful comments written by each of them is their special thanks to the people in their lives who have helped them to achieve what they are going to be recognized for tonight. To really open our ceremony this evening, though, we want to start with a few words from our superintendent, Mr. Jeff Wendorf. Mr. Wendorf?
Thank you, Mr. Treiner. Usually superintendent and few words don't go together very well, but we will do that tonight. We're certainly here to celebrate. Mr. Treiner talked a lot about that, and we're here to celebrate students and certainly faculty and staff that have helped those students. We're here to celebrate parents and also the Sideliners and other groups. Just want to welcome you, celebrate. This is one step in your future, one step in your lives, and you'll certainly be celebrating at other times in your life too. But take a moment tonight to enjoy this, both students and educators, to celebrate with each other the place you're at now and the dreams and wishes of where you'll be in the future. Very fortunate, very blessed to be here tonight and with all of our outstanding achievements and so on. I was inspired last night by a public speaker I heard at a very great event, the Bands in the Round, from our 5th through 12th grade bands performed, and our speaker, Mr. Varn, who was honored educator tonight, shared jokes between every band. They were horrible. So I was going to share jokes, but I think those few people that heard them last night don't want to have to go through that. But no, Mr. Varn, and certainly a celebration is our bands and our music and our arts programs and our athletics and the 3 A's and the arts and athletics and academics. Certainly we're celebrating. We're blessed that we have such outstanding programs and outstanding people. That's what builds our culture. That's why we are very successful. That's why it's a great place for kids and families, is because of our people. And thank you very much. Let's celebrate a little bit. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Wendorf. We also want to just take a moment not only to thank him for his opening comments, but for everything that he and Assistant Superintendent Dave Pilati do behind the scenes every day to make sure that all of our students have the academic success that they deserve. Thank you, Mariah. Thank you, thank you. Speech and debate kids always coming in on the clinch for me. Thanks, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Maybe you haven't really thought about it too much, Summa scholars, tonight, but tonight really is the beginning of the end. Have you thought of it that way? The beginning of many last events that will mark the end of daily routines that have been a big part of your life over the nearly 13 years. Some you may soon miss, while others, let's be honest, you're just counting down the moments. The end of classes in a Monday through Friday schedule. That awkward couple that have been blocking your locker while they make out in between classes where you've just wanted to yell at them, he's just going off to pre-calc, not to war, he'll be back, right? Probably you're wishing for the end of Schoology notifications in your email, right? Are you going to miss those? Maybe you're going to miss HVTV announcements. Maybe you're going to miss Hoover pep rallies. All of those things are things that certainly you're probably going to miss. I know one of the biggest things I've heard from my students this year that they're going to miss is probably the warmest greeting that you'll ever get from a food service worker, our lunch ladies. The kids have said, walking tacos will never taste as good from anyone else. Many things might be coming to an end the way that you've become accustomed over these years. But I think with the end, it's more important to think about how these and your other rich experiences are really the roots of who you are. For just a moment, let's think of that word, roots. Not as in your family history, but literally the word's roots, and the way that it's defined in a variety of the subjects that you've all tackled, survived, however you want to define it, over these past few years. I want you to take a moment and listen carefully to the way that the word roots is defined by some of these subjects. For example, in math, we learned that since middle school, a square root of a number, let's call it x, is divided unto itself to give us the answer. We usually say y, right? Or for all of us non-Summas here this evening, the root of another problem is when you learn in middle school, parents can attest, that a dirty practice athletic jersey that has been in their room for 3 weeks, let's call that X, is not divided away from the gym bag that it's been in for another 3 weeks to create a smell so foul that everyone in your home is now asking why. But somehow, we all still tolerated you. In your English class, you learned that root words are the heart of a word's meaning. We know that a suffix or a prefix added to any word doesn't change the etymological base of that word. That's a pretty big word for an art teacher. I just want you to appreciate that. I got the word entomology out this evening, okay? Doesn't matter whether it's flammable or inflammable. When a heat source gets nearby, it's all gonna go south quickly. Right, Mr. Wood? Where's your, right? Heat source, doesn't matter, flammable or inflammable, bad news is about to happen, right? So that's important. In your own future, think about it for a moment. It doesn't matter what suffix or prefix you're about to add to your name, whether it's an MD, CEO, Mr., Mrs., Ms., or even Esquire. Your meaning, your foundation, your roots that you've learned, and your values that you've learned will never undo who you are today. They will remain the same, and they will never, and nor will you, lose your meaning. Sitting in any social studies class, you've probably learned about something called a root cause. And it's that moment that changes the course of history, either a person or a whole country. It changes their future, sometimes for the good, and as we know historically, sometimes for the bad. When the narrative of that story is strung together for you to understand the timeline of history, have you taken a moment to think about your root causes, those moments that have changed you for good and for bad? Looking at your projected future sometimes is only really enhanced by considering the root causes that have made you who you are today. Up on the second floor, you've learned that biologically speaking, a plant's root structure is a delivery system for all nutrients, right? Water and minerals are stored and transferred via a plant's roots. And probably somewhere in elementary school, you learned that the root system beneath a tree is twice the size of the canopy of leaves that we see above ground, right? This wide system continues to provide an important daily strength to those plants. In your life, I want you to think about your root system, those teachers and friends and the family that have developed, that have sent you life-important nutrients to your personal growth each day. Have they held a reserve of energy for you sometimes when you really needed it? Have you thanked those who have given you that strength in times of need? Maybe before May, take a moment. Thank each person in your life that has been a part of your root structure. Like the mighty tree, those people are branch out far and wide, probably further than you could even imagine or see. Finally, let's go down to the eye hallway near the music rooms. If you're like me, you'll skip the eye hallway bathrooms. If you ever notice when you stand up in those things, you can see your head. They're so short, right? Students, right? We talk about those eye hallways being questionable, right? Those bathrooms, the stalls are so short. Wait a minute, that's something you're not going to miss, right? So we'll skip on to that and talk about music. Sir Varn, pardon my bad botching up of music information here, but we're going to talk a little bit about the study of music theory and that the concept of root notes. You heard of those? Okay. root notes. Or an entire chord of music, how it can be represented vertically through an aggregate of notes. Did I get it right? All right, okay. If you're like me, you absolutely understood none of what I just Googled, right? But think of it this way, and this is what made the biggest impact on me when I read it. A strong understanding of root notes, both instrumentally and vocally, can create a rich and beautiful harmony in music. Harmony from roots. Think about that for a moment. From your roots, your life and experiences over the past 18 years, you've had the opportunity to arrange the musicality of your life. As you know, go off fully to compose your own music. Our Summa students, you've created a 3-part beautiful harmony, understanding that people, personal grit, and gratefulness are what are needed to truly be a success. As we begin honoring each of you this evening, I challenge you to take a look and take stock of your roots. Those people, those gritty moments that have gotten you where you are today, and a sense of gratitude for it all. Keep those roots close to you after you graduate, and I challenge you to be part of the root system for somebody else. Help mentor them, be their nutrients, help them create a personal harmony, and remind them that no matter the suffix or prefix, who you are at your core should never change. Congratulations to each and every one of you this evening. We're going to begin with the presentation of scholars by starting with Miss Tiffany Walker. Ms. Walker.
Taylor Rothman. Taylor's understated, calm style and kind, helpful demeanor made her easy to parent. She is hardworking, self-motivated, and an inspiration to her family. Taylor Rothman.
First, I would like to say thank you to my parents for buying me a milkshake every time I didn't get the grade I wanted on a test. I would also like to thank Mrs. Wackerly for encouraging me to be the best I can be on the news every morning, even though I'm still half asleep when we're filming it. And finally, I would like to thank Mrs. Jordan for making English class so much fun with creative projects and the occasional One Direction song.
Nick Friedel. Nick is a motivated young man with high goals and a strong work ethic, but his true gift is the compassion and helpfulness that he extends to others. Nick Friedel.
I'd first like to thank my baseball coach, Mr. Darren Ware, for encouraging me to work for everything that I've achieved so far in my life. He's been the most motivating person that I know thus far. My second educator is Mr. Jeffrey Kreis. I want to thank him for challenging me in the classroom and helping me step out of my comfort zone and joining a club called TSA, Teams Engineering Club. Wasn't the smartest guy there, but I did my best, so I'm very thankful for that. So.
Claire Vandegrift. Claire displays a unique inner passion for detail and creativity in everything she does: art, music, theater, academics, which will continue to be her driving force toward an excellent future. Claire Vandegrift.
I would first like to thank my parents for supporting me in everything that I do. I would also like to thank Mr. Triner for inspiring me to pursue an artistic career and always challenging me to go outside of my comfort zone. And also Mrs. Geckler for encouraging me to always want to learn and pursue more knowledge. Thank you.
Andrew Hayworth. Andrew has a contagious enthusiasm for life, an unparalleled determination that makes him a joy to be around. Andrew Hayworth.
Well, I would first like to address the massive coffee stain on my shirt. I'm sorry, Mom. Anyway, I would like to thank Mr. Booker for instilling passion in my heart at such a as a young high schooler, and Mr. York for giving me such a likable personality to look up to as a little kid. I would also like to thank my parents for putting up with all of my shenanigans and providing me with such a safe, comfortable home to grow in. Thank you.
Parker Timken. Parker is a goal-driven and focused young lady with amazing determination that drives her every day to be the best version of herself. Parker Timken.
First, I want to thank my parents for always being there for me and supporting me in everything I do. Second, I would like to thank my coach, Mike, who is always there for me and has taught me to never give up and always believe in myself, even when he makes fun of my dancing and calls me old. I would also like to thank my teacher, Mr. Pintola, for letting me rant to you during our tech team sessions with Justin and Evan. Thank you.
Mackenzie Isle. Mackenzie's academic accomplishments have been fulfilled through her immense work ethic. Her parents are most proud of the passion and heart she brings to every challenge. Mackenzie Isle.
First, I'd like to thank my parents for always being there for me. I never could have done this without their support. And I'd also like to thank Mrs. Humphrey for making my third grade year of school so memorable. I think every year my dad would ask me what my favorite, after the year was over, he'd say, "What's your favorite year of school?" And I'd say, "Still third grade." And I also want to thank Mrs. Cynthia for her continuous support. She still writes me letters of recommendation, even when I don't give her much notice. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Brooke Stout. Brooke has always strived for excellence in school, her music, and in all other activities. She is grounded not only by her faith, but also by her family and friends. Brooke Stout.
First, I'd like to thank my parents for giving me such a wonderful environment to grow up in and learn from, so thank you. I also want to thank my second grade teacher, Mrs. Harhager. We've been pen pals for 10 years, and I want to thank her for all the valuable life lessons she's taught me. And lastly, I want to thank Mrs. Ogilvy, who's been my school mom for the past 5 years. I started with her in Jumpstart in 8th grade, and she's taught me so many meaningful lessons on how to be a strong woman with ambition. Thank you, Mrs. Ogilvy and Mrs. Harhager.
Elizabeth Eberly. Elizabeth is her parents' bright spot. She has always made them proud with her amazing accomplishments both in and out of school. Her future has no bounds. Elizabeth Eberly.
Hi, I'd first like to thank my parents. I really couldn't have done anything without them. They're two of the greatest role models I've ever had. Second, I would like to honor my skating coach, Stephanie. I've known her for almost my entire life, and even when I don't believe in myself, I always know she'll believe in me. And lastly, I'd like to thank Mrs. Covington. She always knows the right thing to say. I always have the best time in her class. And lastly, she made me believe that I could pursue a career in the medical field. Thank you.
Abby Wilson. Abby is incredibly hardworking, smart, and determined, but her parents are most proud of her beautiful heart and giving spirit. Abby Wilson.
Hi, I would first like to thank Mrs. Ash for showing me the importance of music, which has changed my life in unspeakable ways. And I would also like to thank Mrs. Cynthia for inspiring me to want to pursue a career as an educator. And lastly, I would like to thank my parents for always loving me, supporting me, and encouraging me to always be my best. Thank you.
Eden Seckham. Eden is a true beacon of light, and her joy, compassion, and drive to impact the lives of children as a teacher will only allow her to shine brighter every day. Eden Seckham.
Hi, first I would like to thank my parents for being my constant support. They're always there for me in everything I do. Next, I would like to thank Mrs. Powell, my third grade teacher. She was just always there for me, and she always had the best attitude in the classroom, and she created a welcoming environment for me. And lastly, I would like to thank Mrs. Dobry. She is my teaching teacher this year, and she's just always been there to answer any questions I may have, and she helps me prepare for my future. Thank you.
Robert Crawford. Your parents have been to this before, so they know this is all good. Robert is kind-hearted, hardworking, and intelligent. His parents are proud of the young man he is and look forward to seeing what he accomplishes in the future. Robert Crawford.
So first off, I would like to thank my parents for always supporting me and loving me and everything I've done throughout my entire life. And next, I would also like to thank my tennis coach, Ryan Schaefer. I thank you for putting up with me for the past 4 years, for starters, and you have taught me so much about not only the game of tennis, but also about the game of life, and I appreciate having a great role model to look up to like you. And lastly, I'd like to thank Mr. Jankar. He was my biology teacher sophomore year, and I really appreciate getting to have a great teacher who's so passionate about their subject like him. And I'd also like to thank him for printing out my last second assignments for me every time that I ask, and for letting me use his side room as a second home. So thank you.
All right, we'll try again. At least since I was up here a few extra minutes, I have some really cute shoes on. So let's try this. Kate Lockridge. Kate had a certain spark her parents could see even as a small child. They know she will do good things with her life and are very proud of her.
I'd like to first thank my parents because even at a young age, they never made education a burden, and I think that's part of the reason why I love learning so much. And I'd also like to thank my coach, Morrison. He not only inspired me to become a great swimmer, he also inspired me to go into marine biology, and I can not thank him enough for that. Lastly, I'd like to thank Mrs. Jenks, my 5th grade teacher, for teaching me that you really do have to enjoy your childhood because it's the only one you get. So, thank you.
Joe Yotzes. Joe is a hardworking son with a gentle heart and a keen eye for beauty in the natural world. But his most outstanding quality is his passion for social justice. Joe Yotzes.
I'd like to thank my parents and all of my educators for being critical in my educational career. And I'd like to thank my 5th grade teacher, Ms. Hamilton, for our production of George Washington, the play. And I think that gave me confidence at an early age that has helped me in my public speaking career and in overall confidence. And I'd like to thank my freshman geometry teacher, Mr. Ackerman. You were the first person I saw on the first day of freshman year, and you created a welcoming environment that helped me fit in, I think, as a freshman. So thank you.
Harpreet Leal. Harpreet's parents are very proud of him, hoping he will continue to achieve higher heights in the future, and wishing him all of the best on his next journey through life. Harpreet Leal.
First of all, I'd like to thank Miss Zuba. She's here today. She's in 1st grade. My family and I, we'd always come to school early, and it was really helpful of her letting us in at like 6:40 in the morning for school. So I'm thankful that she was there teaching us every day how life works and like teaching us vocab in 1st grade. And then I'd also like to thank Mr. Ackerman. I don't know where he is. Oh, he's right there. He taught me a lot, like note-taking. He taught me how to be determined. He taught me how to do so many things that I couldn't even imagine. And I'd really like to thank my parents who are in India tonight. And because of them, I'm here in America, and I'm really thankful that they brought me to this country for better opportunities, and I thank them so much. And especially my sister. Thank you.
Hallie Hunt. From an early age, Hallie has been strong-willed, driven, and focused. Her passion for excellence is inspiring. Her parents are extremely proud of her and thank God for the blessing that she is. Hallie Hunt.
I'd first like to start off by thanking my parents for all their unconditional love and support and instilling the importance of education in me from a young age. I'd also like to thank all of my teachers I've had because they've all had an immense impact on my life. Two specifically are Mr. Holben and Miss Walker. Mr. Holben's class was always the highlight of my 5th and 6th grade year, just as beating him in tennis was the highlight of my 6th grade camp experience. But what I remember is how he made me feel genuinely intelligent, and I can't thank him enough for that. Miss Walker, walking into your class, I was not only intimidated by the rigor of the course, but also by you. And walking out, I had a new confidence in my capabilities as a student, so thank you.
Dylan Pollard. Dylan has a great deal of passion for music, which allows him to explore and express his creative abilities alongside pursuing his interests in all aspects of engineering. Dylan Pollard.
First, I'd like to thank my parents who've always supported me, and first, Mrs. Triner, who's she hosts Camp Invention, which is like a STEM fair for children, and she inspired me back then in elementary school and still inspires me today with what she does. And also I'd like to thank Mr. Christ for being so enthusiastic and energetic about math and really got me to love math and how I do today. And also shout out to my 2 sisters coming up next.
Grace Grissett. Grace is a diligent student who tackles problems with determination and creativity. Her self-direction and ambition will guide her toward a bright future. Grace Grissett.
I'd like to firstly thank my parents for being my rock through everything that life has thrown at me, and also to Mrs. Karen Greenwood, or otherwise known as Frau, for putting up with me for these past 5 years. Couldn't have been easy. I'd also like to thank Mr. Johnson, not only for teaching me how to write well, but also for showing me the weirdest music videos I've ever seen. Thank you.
Courtney Kodik. Courtney has always been very passionate about excelling, not only in academics, but in music, friendships, and in her personal character, striving to display the highest standards. Courtney Kodik.
First, I'd like to thank my parents who came to every single concert these past few years and have never complained when I've practiced, even when I wasn't very good. And I'd like to thank my 2 educators, Mrs. Sarver and Mr. Varn, for teaching me so much about music and not only helping me to grow as a musician, but showing me the value of music and how it can impact people, and for teaching me that music is what I need to do for the rest of my life. So thank you.
Jacob Zingery. Jacob is a conscientious and loving son, brother, and friend, and a musical, creative freethinker. Jacob Zingery.
First, I want to express just how thankful I am for Mrs. Johnson and her endless love and support as both an educator and my grandma. I also want to thank Mr. Bodenschatz for encouraging me year after year to make the right decisions in order to become a better, more productive person for myself and for others. Finally, I want to thank my parents for always pushing me to do work that I'm proud of and to ultimately be the best person that I can be. I don't know where I would be without them, so thank you so much.
Logan McNutt. Logan is a son who not only excels academically and artistically, but has risen above challenges with strength, character, and determination, always demonstrating drive and ambition in everything he does. Logan McNutt.
I would first like to thank my fourth grade teacher and third grade teacher, Mrs. Young. She's by far one of the best teachers I've had. She's a compassionate, funny, warm person, and I still remember her grammar rule. Cakes are done, people are finished. Every time I speak, I always think of that. Next, I'd like to thank Mr. Schreiner. He is honestly more than a teacher to me. He's a mentor, a friend, and I never dread going to art class. It's a place where I can be myself and just have fun. And even though he just says god-awful dad jokes, despite what he said up here, he's not that funny, but he's a good man. And last but not least, I saved the best for last. I'd like to thank my parents. They mean the world to me. I know they'll always support me throughout whatever I do, and I love you guys.
Sarah Pollard. Sarah is committed to succeeding in her academic studies, dedicated to her family and faith, and has a deep appreciation of history and the arts. Sarah Pollard.
I would first like to thank my family for always supporting me through my various passions, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Geckler for teaching me that learning is, above all else, about having fun. And lastly, I'd like to thank Miss Schilling for helping me become someone who is creative, hardworking, and excited to learn more about the world. Thank you.
To present the next group of students, I'd like to introduce Lindsay Johnson.
Logan Martins. Logan is a bright, creative student who is committed to school and community service. He continually seeks new challenges, but he still makes time for fun and humor. Logan Martins.
I'd first like to thank my parents for just encouraging me to be the best person and student that I can be. And I'd like to thank Mr. Wood, my AP chemistry teacher, for making one of the hardest classes at Hoover just bearable and even fun. He was always there for me whenever I needed him and whenever I needed help, and I really appreciate that. And I'd also like to thank my third and fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Young. She really just laid the foundation that allowed me to be the student that I am today, and I'm really thankful that she put up with me for 2 years. So thank you.
Ishika Mahajan. Ishika is a global citizen who embodies the best in academics, sports, and arts. She constantly endeavors to make the world a little bit better each day. Ishika Mahajan.
I want to first thank my parents for always having the highest expectations for me. And that is what has pushed me to have the highest expectations for myself. I want to recognize my third grade teacher, Mrs. Yoakum. She helped me transition from a small private school in Illinois to Northwood Elementary. And finally, I'd like to thank Miss Jackson, my freshman science teacher, and my leadership club advisor for showing me my passion for science as well as for helping others. And I hope to see you at the Senior Citizens Prom.
Aaron McFeeters. Aaron is a dedicated student who uses the gifts God has given him. He's quick to help others and uses humor to lighten any situation. Aaron McFeeters.
I would like to thank Mrs. Isle for making her class such a great class to go to and be in. And I'd like to thank Mr. Bodenschatz for instilling in me the love for computers and design and for always talking soccer with me. I would also like to thank my mom for staying up late with me to finish my homework. I love you, Mom. Thank you.
Annie Roshak. Annie is fiercely competitive and loves to be challenged. She cares deeply for her friends and gives generously to help others. She is driven to always give her best effort. Annie Roshak.
Miss Hood, thank you for inspiring me to be a teacher and for the energy and passion you brought to the classroom every single day. Coach Allerding, just thank you for pushing me to pursue excellence in all areas of my life and constantly pointing me in the right direction. I'm so appreciative of your love and guidance that you've given me over the years. Finally, to my parents, thank you for being so supportive of me in every single thing and for all the nights when I would fall asleep on the couch studying and instead of waking me up, you would just turn the lights off quietly. Thank you.
Matt Warburton. Matt is genuine and hardworking. He is kind and respectful at school, on the tennis court, and in the community. He is endeared by his family and friends. Matt Warburton.
I'd first like to thank my tennis coach, Ryan Schaefer. Thank you for pushing me every single day to be better, be a better person, and a better player on the tennis court. The amount of time and effort you put into the program here at Hoover is truly incredible. I'd also like to thank Mr. Rankin. Your jokes every Monday morning would always brighten my day and brighten my week, and I thank you for that. I'd also like to thank my parents. You guys are awesome. Thanks.
Dylan Upperman. Dylan is a wonderful young man with a bright future. He is an excellent student, a responsible big brother, a mentor to others, and a supportive friend to many. Dylan Upperman.
Thank you. Well, I'd first like to thank my parents. They continue to push me to do my best every day. They motivate me, so I appreciate that. I'd like to thank my first grade teacher, Mrs. Ray. She's the one who taught me to love learning, and she got me comfortable in school, because when I was going into first grade, I was like timid and shy, and she really made me like comfortable and feel like at home at school, so that really helped my educational experience. I'd like to thank my engineering teacher as well, Mrs. Maxwell. She taught me to love engineering and like apply my knowledge to something more important. And she gave me a passion to do something greater with my life, basically. So yeah, thank you.
Hannah Owens. Hannah's love for others in life will carry her far. Her personality and positive attitude will make her a wonderful nurse. Hannah is unable to attend tonight. Hannah Owens. Hudson Davis. Hudson is a confident young man with strong character and keen intelligence. He loves baseball, friends, family, and the Lord. His parents are most proud of his kindness and compassion. Hudson Davis.
I'd first like to thank my first grade teacher, Mrs. Mellert, for making coming to school fun as a little kid, and also for putting up with my reading group singing our books to her in the back of the class every day. I'd also like to thank Mr. Jankar for being an outstanding teacher and for helping me with letters of recommendation and anything else I've needed, so thank you for that. And lastly, I'd like to thank my parents for all the love and support they've given me to help be the person that I am today. Thank you.
Maddie Berry. Maddie is a very intelligent, hardworking, and determined young lady. She is not afraid of setting seemingly impossible goals and then working hard to achieve them. Maddie Berry.
First off, I would like to thank all of my educators, including my coaches and everyone who has helped me get here. I would also like to thank Mrs. Brody, who is my first grade teacher, who showed me the enjoyment of learning and has really inspired me to keep going with my education and just enjoy it while I can. I would also like to thank Mr. Jankar for showing me that regurgitation is never the answer. Always go for comprehension. He has also helped me whenever I stayed after school, so my sophomore year, to learn biology. Thank you to my mom for supporting me through all my ambitions and encouraging me to do whatever my heart desires to do. Thank you.
Carly Tenalia. Carly is fueled not only by her talents, but her faith, her belief in possibilities, and the purpose she feels called to. She's athletic, highly motivated, and genuinely cares for others. Carly Tenalia.
First, I'd like to thank Mrs. Isle. What I remember most about your class was the feeling of community, because we did so many projects as a group and as a whole class, so I felt like comfortable around everyone in that class, and like I got to know everyone's personality, and we were all friends. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Grandjean, who I had for my favorite high school class, which was art. She also helped me with my college decision because her daughter is going to Denison, so when I first found out, stopped by her room just to ask a couple questions before my last period. We ended up talking the entire period, so she helped me a lot. And lastly, I'd like to thank my parents for supporting me my entire life and encouraging me in everything I've done and encouraging me never to quit when I face adversity. Thank you.
And next up is Mr. Michael Johnson to continue with the Summa Scholars.
John Paul Kreidler. John Paul's love of the natural world has sparked his curiosity and work ethic. He's done so much to shape his own future, and his parents are so proud of him. John Paul Kreidler.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mrs. Aston for showing the just innate joy in education and learning, especially in science. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Bilker for really giving me confidence in my own abilities. And then finally, I'd like to thank all of my peers. You've inspired and taught me more than you could possibly know.
Marissa Mountain. Marissa is a daughter that radiates with compassion, dedication, perseverance, and an enlightening spirit that enriches all lives that she encounters. Marissa Mountain.
I would first like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Varn for making the past 8 years of band very memorable. I would also like to thank them for teaching me the importance of hard work, dedication, and the importance of perseverance. I would also like to thank my parents for always motivating me and pushing me to be the best person I could be. Thank you.
Mariah Wood. Mariah's parents are filled with pride as she prepares to graduate. Her work ethic and determination have helped her accomplish goals she set for herself, Summa honors being the most impressive. Mariah Wood.
Hi there. I would like to thank my father, Mr. Wood. He has been the biggest educator in every aspect of my life, and I thank him so much for that, and he will always be there for me. And I would also like to acknowledge Lisa Painter, who has inspired me to take the joy and just the laughter and appreciate every moment of life. So thank you both for being amazing.
Bryce Stallman. Bryce's parents could not be more proud of him and all of his accomplishments. He is a wonderful kid with a kind heart, and they love him so much. Bryce Stallman.
Oh, it took me a little while, but
All right. First off, I'd like to thank my parents, especially my mom, for giving me a swift kick in the rear when I needed it most. I'd like to thank Mrs. Geckler for not allowing me to just skate by on my intelligence and forcing me to work hard and put in effort. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Heben for giving me a place to belong when I was searching for myself most. Thank you.
Elizabeth Katsalis. Ellie has always been an adventurous kid who thrives on visiting new places and having new experiences, which has created an open-minded, kind, and culturally inclusive young woman. Elizabeth Katsalis.
First, I'd like to thank my parents for always being there to push me as hard as I can and encourage me to never give up. Next, I'd like to thank Miss Schilling for always being honest with me and having my best interest in mind, even when it was a hard decision to make. Lastly, I'd like to thank Miss India for instilling in me the work ethic and desire to know that I can achieve anything if I'm willing to put my heart into it.
Ashton Arosa. Ashton has always been independent. He thinks of others before himself. He is beyond advanced academically, particularly in mathematics and sciences. His parents are proud to call him their son, Ashton Arosa.
Well, first, I'd like to thank my parents for talking me out of many a bad decision. It seems like they're always there to say something along the lines of, "Hey, Ashton, shouldn't you be studying the night before your AP exam?" Next, I'd like to thank my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Ledgerwood. She gave me confidence in my writing and mathematics abilities, and I will never forget when she chose me to make a Veterans Day speech in front of about 500 people when Greentown Elementary was still a thing. And last, I'd like to thank Mr. Wood for not only being a teacher, but a figure of guidance to me. He has put up with so many of my shenanigans, written letters of recommendation the day before they're due for me, and guided me on a path to actually getting an awesome job at the University of Akron. Thank you.
Benjamin Weitzel. Ben is always inquiring about new ideas and gaining new knowledge. He is extremely self-motivated and always puts others before himself. Benjamin Weitzel.
Although he cannot be here tonight, I would like to thank Mr. Cummings. He's really passionate about what he does, and it's really inspiring. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Geckler. She really challenged us every day in Galaxy, and really made me love learning. I really looked forward to Galaxy every year. Is it 3 years? Yeah. And I'd like to thank my parents, finally. They've really been my biggest inspiration. They always push me to be the best version that I can be. I'm really bad at speaking, guys. I'm sorry. That's all, so thank you.
Alexia Zilko. Alexia is a successful student and a wonderful person who challenges herself as an individual and freely shares her loving spirit, her compassion, and her support of others. Alexia Zilko.
Hi. First, I'd like to thank my parents for being so supportive in everything I do and always encouraging me to try new things. Second, I'd like to thank Mrs. Isle for being such a positive role model for me, both at school and around the neighborhood, and making history fun. I'd also like to thank Dr. Collis for always going above and beyond what was needed in biology and letting me discover the love that I have for the subject.
Caitlin Cronin. Caitlin's passion, uncompromising principles, and drive for excellence in all activities that she chooses ensure that she will succeed in her pursuits and have a positive impact in the world. Caitlin Cronin.
Good evening. I want to thank Frau Greenwood for not only giving me the opportunity to learn about German culture, but also experiencing Germany, Austria, and Switzerland firsthand. I would also like to thank Mrs. Blandine for teaching me that having the desire to succeed should not prevent one from having fun while working towards his or her goals. And lastly, I would like to thank my parents for giving me some of their smart genes.
Sachi Chaudhry. Sachi's passion, sincerity, and determination make her exceptional. Her parents are certain that she will be a successful individual and brighten up the community wherever she goes with her compassion. Sachi Chaudhry.
Honestly, I wouldn't be standing here today if not for many individuals in this crowd, so I'd like to thank all of you for all your encouragement. I would specifically like to thank Mr. Griffiths and Mrs. Amy Myers for their dedication and encouragement. Mr. Griffith's stories will always remain with me, and he really instilled the curiosity to learn that still drives me today. And Mrs. Myers' strong work ethic and selfless personality inspired me to work hard and choose kind. Yeah. I also like to thank my parents for their constant support. Thank you.
Joshua Dvorak. Joshua is intuitive, funny, and above all else, a stud. I'm just reading what's here. He has always been a jokester and energetic. He is caring and loves to play video games. Joshua Dvorak.
I'd like to thank Mr. Christ for bringing his joy and passion of math every day to school and sharing it with us. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Converse for being one of the nicest teachers and people I've ever met and have the pleasure of meeting. And lastly, I'd like to thank my parents, my family, my friends for always being there for me and sticking by me throughout the years.
Our last presenter for the evening will be Miss Allison Medley.
Oh, great. I didn't have the boot when I volunteered for this, so. All right. It's cool, I got it. He didn't flip his paper,
Brought my own up, sorry.
I got it. All right, you ready? Shiv Dhawan. Shiv's nature is to respect all, be kind without hesitation, and to give all his duties and tasks his 100%. He is pure joy, and he gives joy wherever he goes. Shiv Dhawan.
I would like to thank Dr. Angeloni for showing me just how dedicated a teacher can be to their student success. She always pushed me to be my best and gave me the opportunity to do so as well. And I'd also like to thank Dr. Angeloni, Dr. Peterson, who couldn't be with us tonight. She really showed me my love for neuroscience and taught me so much about the medical field. And she gave me so many opportunities that made me so successful in high school, so I wanted to thank her for her constant mentorship. And my mom asked me not to thank her, but I'm just going to thank my parents anyway because they always taught me that the end of education is character, so I wouldn't be the person I am without them today.
Max Shoemaker. From an early age, it was apparent Max had a future in engineering. Little did his parents know it wouldn't include Thomas the Tank Engine or an extensive British vocabulary. Max Shoemaker.
First of all, I would like to thank my parents for always listening even when they had no idea what I was talking about. I would also like to thank Mrs. Orzak for always having something new to do every day at school and making each day more enjoyable than the last. And finally, to Mrs. Maxwell for always putting up with me and my half a point test retakes.
All right, we knew it was coming. Jordan Pollard. As an athlete, Jordan has a mindset that drives her to be successful on the field and, more importantly, with her studies. Jordan Pollard.
Hi, first I'd like to thank Ms. Renner, my 5th grade math teacher, for introducing my love and appreciation for math. And then secondly, I'd like to thank my cross-country and track coach, Coach Nutzel, for always supporting me through my hardships and successes, whether on the field or in school. And then lastly, I'd like to thank my parents and my brother and sister for supporting me and being by my side through everything.
Sophia Gaños. Sophia is blessed academically and musically. Her strong will drives her to success. Her smile is contagious and is a mirror to her graceful soul. Sophia Gaños.
I first want to thank my parents for always giving me anything that I ever needed, and also for giving me a lot of siblings because that made me be really competitive. I also want to thank Mr. York for always giving me something to look forward to in middle school every day. And lastly, I want to thank Mr. Wood for making AP Chemistry actually really fun and not that bad, while also having to deal with me not being able to light a Bunsen burner.
Jared Kittinger. Jared is a caring son who is always striving to do his best in all that he does, and he loves to help others around him succeed. Jared Kittinger. I tried to say that slowly. He's coming around.
Is this thing on? Yes, so. 77 years ago, our founding fathers set upon this. Wait, wrong speech. I would like to thank my educators, mainly Mr. Wood. He broke my communication barrier last year during AP Chemistry, and he taught me that staying up late isn't always that bad, especially on Pi Day, which is March the 14th. The second person that I'd like to thank is Miss Annie Aston. She was my 6th grade science teacher, and I have to thank her for not throwing me out of school on the first day for breaking her fish tank at 8 o'clock in the morning and giving everybody a early routine to see how well we handled tragedies in the classroom. Lastly, I'd like to thank my mom and dad for always being there and every step of the way for my education, and I would not be here without them. Thank you.
Anika Krishna. Courageous and compassionate, Anika is full of zest for life, always pursuing her passions with grit and determination. Anika Krishna.
I'd like to thank my parents for being my support and inspiration. I'd also like to thank my educators, Madame Summers, for helping me to build my confidence and continuing to be loving and caring even after middle school, and Mrs. O for teaching me to face challenges and for being, as per the name of one of her Pinterest boards, just plain awesome, yo.
Tessa Pilatus. Tessa is compassionate, driven, hardworking young lady with a passion for helping others. Her kindness, quick wit, and humor brings joy to family and friends. Tessa Pilatus.
I would like to thank both my educators, Mrs. Ledgerwood and Mr. Jankar. Mr. Jankar's sarcasm, encouragement, and love for science has bettered me as a student and helped shape my future. Mrs. Ledgerwood has always exemplified positivity, kindness, and compassion towards her students. She has modeled how to treat others with respect and is an example I strive to follow. I would also like to thank my parents for their constant encouragement and just giving me motivation in everything that I do. Thank you.
Nicole Tysa. Determination defines Nicole. She is driven by passion and creativity, yet balanced by pragmatism and logic. When she wants to, Nicole will always find a way. Nicole Tysa.
I would first like to thank Mrs. Geckler for being the one teacher that was able to recognize my curiosity and creativity and was able to direct that into my education and learning. And I would also like to thank Ms. Walker, who both encouraged me as a student and also drove me to work harder and harder with every assignment because she knew I could do better and better, and she brought me to my best. And lastly, I would like to thank my parents for always showing me that there are more things to learn and experience in the world and for always giving me the opportunity to do those things. So thank you.
Zachary Oatley. Zachary's parents are particularly proud of his character. They find this evident in his self-motivated desires to serve his community and, above all, his interactions with school personnel and students. Zachary Oatley.
First, I'd like to thank all of the parents, educators, and students here. I think they really make North Canton the great school district that it is. I'd like to thank my parents for supporting me in all of my endeavors. I'd like to thank my 4th grade and 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Verratti. If you've had her, you know what I'm talking about when I say that she has this electric energy that just really makes students excited about math of all subjects. And I'd like to thank Coach Trumple. When he first came to Hoover, I was a sophomore, and throughout the time I've been on the teams, I've really seen the track and cross country teams grow in all areas. Thanks.
Brody Ware. Brody is a son who has been inquisitive like most bright kids, but his best quality is that he is good at giving and does not hesitate to think of others before himself. Brody Ware.
First, I would like to thank Mr. Jankar for helping me confirm my aspirations to continue a career in the medical field. And secondly, I'd like to thank my summer coach, Mr. Cody Jones, for all the memories I have made while being on his team. I'll really keep those for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Arushi Badola. Arushi has made it her priority to connect with others through laughter. Her curiosity and compassion for others has fueled her personal and educational pursuits throughout her life. Arushi Badola. Hold on. This is for you. Wasn't my idea.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my parents that are back there for just encouraging me and giving me a really loving and fun environment to grow up in, and always encouraging me to ask a lot of questions, and Mrs. Powell for always satisfying my curiosity, for bringing so much energy to the classroom and teaching me so much about organization, something I still do to this day. I always color code all my notes. Thank you very much for that. And I'd like to thank Mr. Ackerman for, wait, you're right there, okay, sorry, for just helping me find love for geometry, even though I swore I loved algebra. I still hate proofs, but I like geometry now. And I'd also like to thank you for teaching me how to defend myself against your roasts, even though I'm still working on that. And I'd like to thank all my other educators here. I will be hunting you down after this, so thank you.
You made it. And now our principal, Mr. Bornstein.
Well, thank you. Good evening. It is my pleasure to be here tonight to recognize these outstanding students and educators. To the Summa students, thank you. Thank you for the leadership you provide to Hoover each and every day. Through your academic success, your good works in the community, your compassion for others, you have become the pride of Hoover as your efforts make it a special place. Parents, thank you for entrusting us with your children. Students do not reach this high level of success without the love, support, and nurturing from their parents. Parents of this year's Summa students, please stand. Thank you. To the honored educators, thank you for mentoring the students who are recognizing you tonight. Educators don't always see a finished product in the students they teach, advise, and coach. But being selected as an honored educator shows how much of a positive impact you've had in your efforts. Honored educators, please stand and be recognized as well. Thank you. As mentioned before, Mrs. Lecky Ewing coordinates this event and ensures that everyone knows what we need to do and that it gets completed. Thank you, Mrs. Lecky Ewing, the Summa Committee, and Mr. Triner for your work in ensuring the program is a success. Please stand and be recognized. Sideliners annually sponsor the Summa celebration. Mr. and Mrs. Kokenauer, thank you for being here tonight and the Sideliners' continued support. Finally, thank you to Walsh University for the continued partnership as well as the use of the facility for tonight's program. Success is not always easy. In fact, it usually comes through hard work, perseverance, and sometimes failure. Without perseverance, Steve Jobs may not have become one of America's most prolific technology innovators. And we may not have the iPad and iPhone. When he was 20 years old, Jobs started Apple in his parents' garage. And within a decade, the company blossomed into a $2 billion empire. However, at age 30, Apple's board of directors fired Jobs. He found himself unemployed, fired from the very company he created. Rather than treating this firing as a failure or a curse, he viewed it as freedom to grow, to think creatively, and to set off on new adventures. In fact, Jobs later said that getting fired from Apple was the best thing to ever happen to him. Years later, Jobs returned to his former company and helped launch Apple's current resurgence in popularity. Summa students, I hope that you continue to challenge yourself and to strive to live life as a learning process where every result moves you that much closer to your goals. Thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate the students' achievements. Finally, to commemorate this evening, we ask that our Summa students go to the risers on my right at this time to allow to take a group photo. Thank you and have a good evening.